This episode is brought to you by my Grad School Femtoring merch. We have the perfect holiday gift idea for all the amazing femtors in your life. It's the season of giving for many, and what better way to thank that professor, advisor, supervisor, or sponsor who's been guiding your professional journey than with our Femtor merch line, which is designed to honor and celebrate those who uplift others through a feminist and intersectional lens. From our premium eco hoodies to our garment dyed tees, each piece celebrates the spirit of femtorship. Want something cozy? Our Femtor mugs, paired with our handcrafted soy wax candles, make the perfect self-care gift set. And to send a thoughtful thank you, check out our minimalist greeting cards and holographic stickers. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and so I'm really excited for you. Whether you're shopping for your favorite femtor or treating yourself, these pieces carry meaning beyond just merch. This is a way for you to acknowledge yourself and those around you who have made an impact. Go to gradschoolfemtoring.com/shop to place your order before the holiday season ends. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. As you probably noticed, today I am releasing a replay of a very popular episode. The episode is called 6 Ways to Overcome Dissertation Writing Anxiety. This is a great episode for any graduate student or undergraduate student that needs to complete some intensive writing. You might be working on a thesis, you might be working on a dissertation, you might be working on a large-scale manuscript, and you are struggling to focus and you are feeling anxiety. And you know what? If this is the case for you, I don't blame you. This week of all weeks has been an especially busy week for me. I too have struggled to focus with the combination of election-related anxiety. I don't even know what the results are. So we might know by the time this episode gets released. We might not. With that combined with some work-related travel, personal-related travel, and in general, this being a very, very busy season for me personally with my kids and their birthdays and with my partner and our anniversary and with just holidays, it doesn't stop. I needed to give myself some grace, give you a chance to listen to an episode if you haven't listened to it before. This is a really, really great one. I've even had professors reach out to me to tell me that they gained a lot from this episode. And then not just that, if you have listened to it, it helps to listen to it again because we tend to retain information better when we have a chance to review it. So I hope that you enjoy it. And without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the top global ranked and award nominated Grad School Femtoring Podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to listen in on conversations about grad school and growth. In this podcast, you'll learn about all things higher education, personal development, and sustainable productivity. This is Dr. Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to successfully navigate grad school and beyond. For over 14 years, I've been empowering first-gen students of color along their personal and professional journeys, and I'm really excited to support you too. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. This is your host, Dr. Yvette, coach, author, and speaker. So today's episode is all about how to overcome dissertation writing anxiety. And I'm going to talk about 6 specific ways to do that. Why writing anxiety? Because I have directly experienced writing anxiety. A lot of folks that I work with may not even realize it, that they're actually struggling with writing anxiety. And so if you're struggling with long form writing, if you're working on a dissertation, if you're working on a proposal and you're struggling to make progress, it's useful to figure out what's at the root of it. And if it is writing anxiety, we'll talk about it a little bit more, and hopefully some of the advice I shared today, some of the tips, insights
will help you to regain momentum in your dissertation writing. So what is writing anxiety? When I talk about it, I'm using it to refer to a phenomenon that induces feelings of fear, stress, uncertainty when engaging in any form of writing. So if you're a graduate student, it's probably when you're engaging in academic writing. And there are a lot of reasons why you might fear writing or you might be feeling a sense of writing anxiety. And some of us are more susceptible to it than others. I, for instance, am more susceptible to it because I also struggle with generalized anxiety disorder. And so I'm susceptible to a lot of different types of anxiety. And that may be the case for you as well. Sometimes writing anxiety comes as a result of a lack of confidence. Maybe you've had bad experiences with writing. Maybe you've had bad experiences with learning language arts in general. I was in English as a second language courses in elementary school, and I had a bad relationship with reading and writing. I often thought that I was bad at it, and because I struggled with it, and I brought those limiting beliefs with me to graduate school and continued to think that I was terrible at writing. And that's not necessarily true. A lot of us are also not taught that writing is a multi-step process that involves lots of drafts and writing messily, writing badly, writing, zero drafts or what some people call shitty first drafts, and then cleaning them up and then revising them and then editing them. And a lot of us don't know, at least in undergrad, a lot of times you're not taught about the publishing process. So you don't know what goes on behind the scenes to get something to the level that it's at when you're reading a peer-reviewed article, for instance, or a book, for instance. So all these things can contribute to you feeling like you're not good enough, low confidence, and increased writing anxiety. All right, so let's talk about these 6 things and how you can combat them. Let's get straight to it because in my former recording, it actually felt like it dragged a little. And so this time, I want to get a little bit more to the point. So here are the 6 obstacles I'm going to talk about. The first one is procrastination. Second one is lack of motivation. Third one is time management. Fourth one is struggling with the research process. Fifth one is struggling with how to address feedback. And the last one is dealing with imposter syndrome, imposter phenomenon, and imposterization. Those are the 6 things. The first one, procrastination. Let me just say that I know that some of us are more susceptible also to experiencing procrastination than others because if you're a neurodivergent, some neurodivergent folks are distracted easily, and that's just part of the way that your brain works. But there are things that you can do to help to minimize distractions. Sometimes procrastination is not about distractions. Sometimes it's about fear of failure. Sometimes it's because you're confused and you don't know how to get started on something, so you're avoiding it. Maybe you're procrastinating because you're waiting for motivation to kick in. Maybe you're procrastinating because you're not really prioritizing it, and so you're not making time for it. And the more you procrastinate, odds are the more likely you're going to experience anxiety about writing. And so what do we do about procrastination? I have found that one thing that helps me to reduce distractions and focus a little bit more is having a reward system. I actually, yesterday, I was checking my Facebook and I got a Facebook memory, and one of the memories was an image of my laptop from grad school. It was a smaller laptop than I have today. And it had an image of my project management dashboard. I was using Kanban board or Kanban flow, which is similar to Trello, which is a way of organizing your tasks. And so it was an image of that. And then it was also a picture of my desk with a sheet with columns of the different days of the week and a bunch of stickers on it. And what I was doing was I was doing a sticker reward system so that every single time I addressed a comment on a dissertation chapter and I had lots of comments, I would give myself a sticker. And that was how I got myself through a lot of the dissertation writing and revision process. It was with rewards. Rewards can look like anything. It's what works for you. It could mean after working for 25 minutes, I'm going to go out on a 10-minute walk. It could mean I'm going to take a bath. It could mean I'm going to call a friend. It could mean I'm going to watch a show. It could mean you name it. You know what works for you as a reward. Another thing, aside from rewards, that could help you with beating procrastination is co-working with someone. I'm a huge fan of co-working. It could be in person. It could be online. It could even be with a stranger. There are websites like FocusMate. I've used FocusMate before, where you're paired with a random stranger and you work together online. And so try it out. I used to feel a lot of shame when I was a grad student because I thought, well, I shouldn't need to co-work with someone. I should be able to do this work on my own by myself. And now I embrace it because there's some things that I still to this day don't love doing or avoid doing or seem hard for me or overwhelm me. And when that happens, I use my precious co-working time. I co-work with someone at least once a week, every week. I use that time to tackle the very difficult tasks I have going on that week. Oh, another thing to help beat procrastination, and you'll want to take note of this. Please, 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 if there's one thing I really want you to remember about this episode, it's these two things that I'm going to say right now. The first is to give yourself permission to be a bad writer, to give yourself permission to make a mess. I remember attending some sort of writing workshop at UCLA in the Writing Center many, many years ago when I was a grad student. And somewhere someone said, first you make a mess, then you clean it up. And that has stayed with me. Some people say write drunk, edit sober. I'm not a fan of alcohol, so that one doesn't quite work for me. But I do like first you make a mess, then you clean it up. I remember that all the time. And so I allow myself to write badly, to make a mess, to just write without any inhibitions, all the mistakes that I make. And that's okay, especially for your first draft, which no one has to see quite yet. And then the other thing I want to say that's very, very important is to reframe what you count as writing. There's so many things that you can do that can count as writing. You can take notes while you're reading something. You can journal out your thoughts and feelings about why you don't want to do this. You can record a voice memo on your thoughts related to the topic and then transcribe it later. You can work on a thought bubble or a mind map to connect different ideas together. All of that counts as writing. So next time you think you didn't do any writing, think, well, were you thinking about the project? Did you work on it in some way, shape, or form, in some facet that can eventually be put on the paper? Okay, then you're working on your writing. So those are very, very important. They hopefully will help you also with combating procrastination and minimizing your writing anxiety. So now let's talk about lack of motivation. Because there's one myth that I want to debunk right now when it comes to motivation. A lot of people think that they have to wait to feel motivated to get started on their writing. And this, unfortunately, is not true. And the most consistent people who do things do it even when they're not motivated. When you think about an athlete, you think they want to work out every single day? Probably not. There are going to be days they don't want to do it. But they do it consistently. Why? Because, what is it? I don't even know what the quote is, but the point is that the motivation comes after the action. So doing something before you even feel like doing can actually help you gain motivation. So next time you don't want to do it, why not a 2-minute rule of I'm going to do it for 2 minutes? I think this rule I got from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear about the 2-minute rule is just try it for 2 minutes. If you want to go out for a run, just tie your shoes, laces, and put your shoes on and step outside. And if after 2 minutes you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Some people, may make it into a 5-minute rule. I usually make it into a 10-minute rule. Like I'll tell myself, I don't really want to ride my bike today, my stationary bike. They're like, okay, I think I can do 10 minutes. So 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. A very short amount of time. See how you feel after. If you feel good, keep going. Maybe you might get the motivation because motivation often comes after the action. And so that's what I want to say about motivation. And the other thing I wanted to mention about motivation is that motivation a lot of times comes from goals that we set for ourselves that are intrinsic, that are internal, that are related to our passions and the ways that we want to grow as individuals. Whereas things like writing a dissertation, a lot of times they're more external, they're extrinsic. It's a milestone that's required for you to get your PhD. Your advisor and committee members are expecting you to do this. It wasn't your brilliant idea to write a dissertation. And even if it's a topic of your choice that you really love, the fact that this milestone is external, is extrinsic, might make you feel less motivated to do it. And so that's why I want to remind you to not wait on motivation and instead to find a way to increase that sense of urgency of why you're doing this. Because sometimes that urgency of realizing, oh, wow, I only have 2 years left in my program. And if I do the math and all the chapters I have to write and the revisions, that means I don't have a lot of time. That means I should be doing X, Y, and Z this semester. That urgency of, wow, I don't have a lot of time. I need to get it done so that I can graduate and finish and leave and move on to the rest of to working on the other aspects of my life. That can help you to sustain motivation when you are struggling with it. All right. Let's talk about what else I want to say about motivation. Let me see if I have any other. Oh, the other thing about motivation is, again, the external accountability to meeting with the peer can help with increasing your motivation. And writing down the reasons why you're working on your dissertation will help you. I know that one reason why a lot of people aren't able to change habits, let's say they want to develop a new habit, positive habit, and they're unsuccessful, is usually because of one of two reasons. Usually because you either don't have a strong enough why, or are unsure or don't know the how. So if you don't know how to do it, you're not going to do it. If you don't have a strong enough reason to do it, you're not going to do it. And so in this case, lack of motivation, you're working on a dissertation, reminding yourself, why are you getting your PhD? Why are you writing this dissertation? Why are you working on this research? Why does it matter to you so much? That's going to help you when you're feeling down, when you're feeling like you don't want to work on it. Okay, next up is time management. And I want to say that sometimes people think it's time management, and it's actually writing anxiety that's getting in the way of them prioritizing their writing and working on it. But I also know that graduate students tend to have a lot on their plates. You might be teaching, you might be presenting at conferences, you might be publishing, you might have 1, 2, maybe 3 part-time jobs. I had 3 part-time jobs in grad school at one point. You might have a full-time job. You might have personal obligations. There's so much going on. And I get it. They're important. But also your dissertation, if you want to finish, at some point it's going to have to be important too. And so prioritizing and reprioritizing things regularly is going to help you to take your dissertation seriously and make the time for it and work on it when it comes to the time management. Another thing when it comes to time management is creating a timeline. And this timeline can be a monthly timeline. It can be weekly. It can be annually too. So most of the time when I work with folks, I ask them to create an annual timeline, at least 1 year, and then split it up into months because every week is different. Some weeks are, some weeks things happen, but monthly, there's some things that you can expect yourself to get done every month. But having that timeline is going to give you an aerial view of what you're expected to do to graduate. And it's going to give you that impression of realistically how much time you have to work on your dissertation. You might think you have a lot of time. And then you look at your timeline and you realize, wow, I actually don't have that much time because I have to work on chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, because I have to work on revisions, or because I have to work on an intro and conclusion. And so just keep those things in mind. Create a writing timeline. I even have an episode on how to write a dissertation writing timeline if you want to check it out, if you want to try that. And then lastly, time management. Don't let the overwhelm get to you. Remind yourself constantly prioritize and reprioritize. It's really easy to let other things get in the way. But at some point, something's going to happen that's going to light that fire under your butt to get it done. In my case, I was just over it and wanted to leave. And actually, I finished my dissertation before a year before I even filed. And I only stayed an extra year because I needed funding. And I was able to get another dissertation year fellowship. But I was ready to go. I was ready to leave. And that might be the case for you too. You might be working on a proposal and just getting started, realizing, okay, I really don't want to spend more than 2 years here. So I really have to focus and spend time and not expect perfection and turn in a good enough draft to help me move on. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is struggling with the research process. This is completely understandable. You might be working on a project that just keeps making you go in circles. You're going on rabbit holes. You're working on experiments that keep failing. Maybe you are unclear about the methodology. Maybe it's a topic that's new to you. Maybe it's not even your topic. It's your advisor's topic. Maybe somebody else suggested that you work on this and this wasn't your idea to begin with. You name it, there's a lot of things that could impact your ability to write when you're working on a research-related project. A lot of graduate students don't receive enough guidance to effectively perform the methods, the studies, the interviews, the survey, whatever you're working on, close readings, to then write their dissertation. And so it's easy to get frustrated and then to avoid it altogether. But I don't want you to avoid it. What do I want you to do instead? If you can't get the support that you need from your advisor, and no advisor can provide you all the support you need, no advisor is perfect. If you can't get that support, you want to lean on other mentors and femtors. Find other people. It could be committee members. It could be other folks in your department. It could be in other departments. It could be from support from peers. It could mean taking a course to fill in certain research gaps, to learn certain methods. You could sit in on other courses. You can get input from others, ask others for feedback. Research difficulties happen. I just want to normalize that and to remind you that it's up to you to keep trying, to ask for help, to do things differently until something works. All right, now the next thing I'm going to talk about is when you struggle with receiving feedback. This is common because a lot of professors are not taught how to give positive feedback, how to praise you, how to acknowledge the things you're doing well. Instead, they're taught to critique. A lot of graduate students are not taught how to receive feedback, how to properly address feedback and revisions and make time for it, and how to deal with the very difficult emotions that can come up when you receive a lot of critical feedback. And what can you do about this? If dealing with feedback is a thing that is getting in your way of making progress, well, one thing that you can do is actually, before I even say what you can do, let me just tell you about this because I struggled with this. I remember this is one of like the worst cases of feedback for me. I remember getting a chapter back with feedback from my advisor, and it had over 140 comments. The chapter was probably 40, 50 pages, and I had 144 comments. My jaw dropped. I felt so discouraged. I thought I was the worst writer. And I told my friend at the time, and she told me, wow, how amazing that your advisor spent so much time on your writing and gave you so much generous feedback. I wish my advisor did that because for her advisor was MIA, took forever to give feedback. And when the advisor did give feedback, it was not much feedback. And so she was struggling with the opposite problem of needing more help, more support, more feedback to make progress on her writing. And so that was a reframe that was really helpful for me because I realized instead of thinking, wow, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible writer, instead I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity to strengthen my writing, advance my research, keep growing my skill set. And I know it's discouraging when you first see it, but I would give myself some time, and you should give yourself some time, maybe a day, to sit with the uncomfortable feelings and then open up the document instead of avoiding it and then deal with it little by little. Break it up. If you have 140 comments like I did, label them, label them as the green comments and the red comments. The green ones are the easy ones. The red ones are the hard ones, and deal with the easy ones on the hard days, on the days you don't want to work, the days you're low energy. Deal with the hard ones when you're working on it and you're feeling more energized or more focused. But the point is, figure out a system that works for you for managing both the emotional side of the feedback and the side of feedback of figuring out how to actually address it and work on your revisions. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the imposter syndrome, imposter phenomenon, imposterization. I don't have time right now to really go through the differences between them. Although I did have a podcast episode with Dr. Lisa Sanchez where she talked about the differences between imposter syndrome and imposter phenomenon. And imposterization, I guess, in terms of how I interpret it, is when you are being made to feel like an imposter because the system, the space is not supporting you in the way that you need. So that's feeling imposter syndrome, especially first gen, your student color. So common. You might be feeling like a fraud, like they're going to figure you out, like it was a mistake that they let you in, like you could never write like other people are writing. You can never speak in jargon like others do. Then sometimes it gets so bad to the point where folks not only stop writing, but they leave their programs altogether. And I don't want that for you. And so what do I want instead? I want you to do what I do and see if it works for you, which is to surround yourself with people who believe in you. Some people will believe in you sometimes more than you might believe in yourself. And it helps to have others believe in you because sometimes when you're starting out, them believing in you, they might believe in you more, and their motivation, their support can help you to build momentum and maintain that momentum. Another thing that I do to help me when I'm feeling like I'm not good enough is to acknowledge my strengths. You can write them out somewhere, but keep track of the compliments that you get. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has strengths, and everybody has strengths in their writing too. You might be creative. You might be good at connecting ideas. You might be good at summarizing and synthesizing information. You might be good at analyzing data. You might be good at conducting interviews. You might be good at organizing information. You might be good at explaining difficult topics in simple ways. There's so many ways that you might have strengths in your writing process. And so reminding yourself, okay, I might not be the best writer, but there are parts of this process where I can incorporate my strengths. And yeah, I think those are the two main things when it comes to how I manage the imposter syndrome phenomenon, imposterization. I surround myself with amazing people who motivate me, who inspire me, who believe in me. And I believe in myself. I remind myself of my strengths. And I remind myself that I don't have to be perfect. My writing doesn't have to be perfect. My project doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be good enough because I believe in it enough that it needs to be put out in the world. And your dissertation proposal, your dissertation, your book, even if it's not perfect, the idea of it hopefully is strong enough that it deserves to be out in the world. It is. Your voice matters. So that's it for today. I hope that you found at least one thing today that was helpful. Let me know what's working for you, and I will talk to you all next time.
Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. If you like what you heard, here are 4 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you email me a screenshot, I'll send you a surprise freebie. The second way is to get your copy of my free Grad School Femtoring Resource Kit, which includes essential information to prepare for and navigate grad school. You can access it at the link in today's show notes. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @GradSchoolFemtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. The last way to show your love is to order a copy of Is Grad School for Me, my graduate school admissions book for first-gen BIPOCs. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.